Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our reactions to the Mexican Grand Prix. More chaos lies ahead of us in this race. We'll get into all of it in just a little bit. Please remember to like and subscribe. And a huge shout out to our members, Dakota, the Joyous James, Robin Myers and Cinnamon Strudel. If you want to become a member, the link is in the description. That being said, let's not waste any time. Let's get right into this. Carlos Sainz is on pole position. Max Verstappen alongside him. Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc make up the second row. The third row is all Mercedes. Russell leading Lewis Hamilton. The only change to the grid from yesterday is Esteban Ocon, who qualified 19th, has made some changes to the car and will start from pit lane. As for tyres, Lawson, Bottas, Colapinto, Perez, Zhou and Ocon all on the hards, everyone else on the mediums, and as the lights go out is a fantastic start from Max Verstappen, who's able to pull alongside Carlos Sainz at the start, but my eyes were taken away from the front to about the mid-pack because Yuki Tsunoda is out of the race. What had happened here is quite convoluted, to be honest. So he went down the inside of Alex Albon. As he was doing that, Gasly was on the outside and pulled across. Albon is slap bang in the middle, gets sandwiched by the two, clips the right rear of Yuki Tsunoda, sends him into a huge high-speed spin. He hits the wall on the side, then carries on going, hits the wall again. Yuki Tsunoda is out. Albon's got damage on his front left suspension. He's out as well. So 2 DNFs into turn 1 here at the race. Meanwhile, at the front of the grid, Max Verstappen, who was alongside, is now ahead. Carlos Sainz was pushed out wide. He went off the track, came back in first place, gave the position back to Max, and then filed in through there. But of course, the safety car is out due to that incident between Yuki Tsunoda and Alex Albon. So a very, very exciting start here. Lots of stuff going on, including Sergio Perez gaining 5 places in just, 3 corners? So a fantastic start for Perez, but he is under investigation for a false start. And when we see the replay here, it's not actually a false start, but it is the box position, because he's in front of his grid box by about a foot. When you see the replay, he's massively over the line there. He goes on to protest and say that he wasn't, which you would expect him to do nonetheless. But yeah, you could fit a Subway sandwich between Perez's front wheel and the grid box there. It was massively over the line and definitely deserved the penalty, which he received. Is a 5-second penalty for Sergio Perez. The safety car ends on lap 7, and Max goes super early. This is a huge start-finish straight, the longest on the calendar, and with that, you're going to have a huge slipstream. So Max going very early to try and catch Sainz off guard, try and build a gap there, and he certainly does. A lap later, he's still in the lead, and he's in the lead by over a second from Carlos Sainz to break that DRS. But inevitably, the speed of that Ferrari catches him again, and a lap after that, Sainz has DRS on him and is able to take the lead from Max Verstappen into turn 1. Now, Max does try and fight back, but Sainz then has DRS in the second straight, which personally I don't agree with. I don't like these double DRS straights where if you're behind at the end of a lap, half a lap later you get DRS. I don't agree with it, but that's just how it is. So yeah, Sainz has DRS on that second straight. Without that, I think Max could have potentially gone round the outside maybe, but it wasn't on. Sainz takes the lead from there. At this point then, Lando Norris is now putting a lot of pressure on Max Verstappen, and this is when complete madness happens, because we saw what happened in Austin, and I said at the time it was fantastic defensive driving from Max, and it was great driving from Lando that unfortunately ended in that incident which no one has shut up about for a week. Well, this incident means that no one's going to shut up for about at least a month, I think now. Lando Norris goes round the outside of Max Verstappen. Max pushes him out wide again. Lando Norris comes back on the track in front of both Max and Sainz at this point. He returns the position to Sainz, but does not give the position back to Max Verstappen. Then they carry on going. Lando leaves the inside open. Max goes for a huge lunge, then doesn't make the corner, sends both him and Lando Norris off the track, allows Leclerc to just go through, going from 4th to 2nd. Then Max comes back on the track in front of Lando Norris. So just a hell of a lot of stuff happened here within the space of like 5 corners. It results in Max Verstappen getting 2 separate 10-second penalties. Utter madness coming from this moment here. And I'm looking forward to seeing Max's interview on this, because I just want to know, what the hell was he thinking? What went on here? Like, madness. Like, I can't put into words what really was going through his head, because like, I can kind of understand the first one. It's a hugely aggressive defense, but we saw him do that last week and he got away with it. I think differently here, because Lando was ahead at the apex here. Lando was definitely ahead. That was his corner, and Max pushed him off. So that's the penalty there, slam dunk. But then the second bit, I just don't get it at all. I do not understand why you would do that, because he's just pushing him both off the track, giving the position to Leclerc, then gaining that position by going off the track, which is exactly what Lando did last week and got a penalty for it. It was utter madness. Add to that, the driver steward this weekend was Johnny Herbert, and we know at his time at Sky Sports, he despises Max Verstappen. So it was a very quick decision to give him both penalties from Mr. Herbert there. But both penalties very much deserved as well. It was just, as I said, madness. But the thing is, from here, he is ahead of Lando Norris with these 2 penalties. And in terms of the long game, this actually worked out quite well for Max. Because not only had he allowed Leclerc to get in front of Lando, but then he was able to slow Lando down by being in front of him. And I put out the thing last week talking about the incident in Austria, where I described Max Verstappen as a genius playing the rules to his way and getting away with that move in Austin because he knows the rules so well. And that was turned into a short and put on TikTok and all this kind of stuff. And I got a comment in the TikTok saying, Max is a genius, but he's an evil genius. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Because in the long run, this has actually helped Max. Because Lando had the pace to win this race. We saw it towards the end here, when he's chasing down Sainz. He had the pace to win, but he didn't. And he didn't win because Max held him up at this point. So, if Max had just kind of let him go through at this point, Lando would have won. Max had the pace to finish around about 4th. So Lando would have taken home 25 points. Max would have taken home 12. So that's a difference of 13 points to Lando Norris. Instead, because of what Max did, Lando was only good enough for 18th. And despite his penalties, Max came back and I think was 6th. So Lando Norris got 18 points, Max Verstappen got 8. So instead of a 13-point gap, Max escaped with a 10-point gap. So even when Max loses, he's winning, because it turns out better for him because of what he did there. He's a genius, but he's an evil genius. It's utter chaos. I mean, he's just doing whatever he can to secure that championship, which is, exactly what you should be doing in this point. He's playing it as hard as he can, and this is what we get. I mean, Jesus Christ, who knows what he's going to do next? What will happen in Brazil if these two meet again? Because it's just been non-stop at the minute, I can't wait to see it, though. We love a bit of drama, don't we? Let's move on. So, we get the penalties. They come through, obviously. We get a wonderful little battle here between the two Mercedes drivers. These two were basically battling for the entire race. But the first battle of theirs started at this point. The interesting thing, though, is George Russell has the old car. Because of the crash in Austin, where he broke his upgrades. They haven't been able to replace them yet, so he has the old spec car, whereas Lewis Hamilton has the new spec car. And at this point in the race, George Russell overtakes Lewis Hamilton relatively easily for P5 on lap 15. We'll come back to this later on because there's more to say. Fernando Alonso is celebrating his 400th GP this weekend. Celebrates it by DNFing on lap 16. Apparently there was something caught in the radiator or something, probably a tear off. Car was overheating, had to retire the car. Not a great way to celebrate his 400th GP, but there you go. Meanwhile, further up the grid, Sergio Perez is having a bad time. I think he had served his penalty at this point. I'm not even sure. But either way, he was fighting Liam Lawson, and it got incredibly feisty. So Lawson, I think, forced Perez onto the inside. The gap wasn't really there, but Perez went for it anyway. Their side-by-side contact was definitely made. There was damage to Sergio Perez's side pod, and I don't think he got through either way. That was on lap 19. Later on, these two would meet each other again on the track. Liam Lawson not making too many friends in his first two races back. Last week was Alonso, this time Perez. But next time they meet, Lawson overtakes him and gives him the finger as he goes past. So, great stuff all around. But yeah, Sergio Perez's race weekend, my God, I don't think it could have been any worse. Even if he DNF'd on lap 1, I think that would have been a better weekend than what actually happened. Out in Q1, 5-second penalty from something that happened before the lights even went out. Now he has damage because he's battling the guy who is looking very likely to take his seat next year. Anyway, moving on. On lap 26, Lando Norris is all over the back of Max Verstappen yet again, but we don't get to see another battle because Max Verstappen pits on lap 27, serves his penalty, gets the hard tyres on, a 24-second long penalty for Max Verstappen, which is very a long pit stop, but still quicker than some of the ones Sauber were doing earlier this year. Then we get a few pit stops from the leaders. Norris on lap 31, Leclerc 32, Sainz 33. Russell now, he'd pit as well, and he had some fantastic moves here. Passed Lawson on one corner, then into the next corner, past Piastri. Went from 6th to 4th in the matter of 2 corners there. Great stuff from Russell. Oscar Piastri at this point, he'd been left out by McLaren for a very long time, was having to defend against quite a few guys on fresher tyres, including Lewis Hamilton at this point. Piastri has a very aggressive defence on Hamilton, whilst also trying to attack Liam Lawson. Hamilton is able to get alongside Piastri, but then goes to attack Lawson at the same time. Lawson defends from Hamilton, which leaves the door open for Piastri. Piastri takes the place from Lawson. Then into the next corner, Lewis takes the place from Lawson. Piastri loses 2 places in a matter of 2 corners on lap 34. On lap 35, Hamilton then is able to get past Oscar Piastri on the older tyres. Lap 40, Piastri finally makes his pit stop after being left out for 40 laps, moving across to the mediums. Now, George Russell is reporting drops of rain here. Of course, it could be sweat, but it did look like it was slightly spitting in Mexico. The track got very dark, a big cloud overhead. We got all the classic F1 shots of is it going to rain? You know, let's have a look at this map with a multicoloured cloud coming along. Zoom in on the point that said, oh, maybe it's going to rain. Zoom in on the mechanic who's looking at an intermediate tyre. Oh, is it going to rain? It didn't rain. There was maybe a bit of spitting, but nothing too much to actually worry yourself about at any point. Perez pits again on lap 44. I think he did do a free stop in the end, and his position, is understandable after that. Disgraceful race anyway, but free stop when everyone else is doing one also explains why you're not doing very well. But yeah, I didn't really understand this one because he started on the hards, went to the mediums relatively early to serve the penalty, and then went for mediums again on lap 44. Just completely out the window for Perez. Carlos Sainz at this point comes on the radio and says, we're pushing too hard, which is once again code, and again only the most intelligent fan can decipher the code, which means please say that Leclerc's not going to fight me, please. But realistically, he had nothing to worry about, because I don't think Leclerc was ever near him, really, in this race. I don't know if they were... they were all saving the tyres at this point in the race, but I don't think, relatively on pace, Leclerc was ever near Sainz in this race this weekend. Meanwhile, those teammates aren't fighting, but two other teammates are. It's Hamilton and Russell on lap 50. At this point, George Russell is in the lead of the two Mercedes, but has a little bit of front wing damage. The left side of the front wing is flapping all over the place, so damage for Russell. Hamilton down all over the back of him with DRS. But the guy I was watching at this point was Valtteri Bottas, because he was in 11th. 11th place in a Sauber, and I was thinking, this race has been mad. One more DNF, and Valtteri Bottas is going to score a point. But it was because he hadn't pit yet. He was last to pit, but he went into the pits on lap 51. But still, nonetheless, Valtteri Bottas, in a Sauber, on old tyres, on lap 51, was nearly in the points. And if that's not something to celebrate for the Sauber team, I don't know what is. So back to the Mercedes, though, because Lewis now has DRS and the upgraded Mercedes, but somehow cannot get past George Russell, who not only has the older car, but a broken front wing. And I think this goes to show that there's something quite wrong with the Mercedes' new upgrades. We knew that anyway, because, they caused George Russell to crash in qualifying, then caused Lewis Hamilton to crash in the race. And the car has been relatively unstable since they've introduced these new upgrades. But Russell, in the old car with a broken front wing, was consistently faster than Lewis Hamilton in the new car and no visible issues. So something's not right there with Mercedes, but there we go. Lap 62 now, and Lando Norris has DRS on Leclerc for P2. We never get to see this battle, though, because coming out of the last corner, Leclerc nearly completely loses it and nearly hits the wall. It's a fantastic save for him. He goes off track, and when he comes back on, Lando Norris has passed him for P2 and he's down the road. But it has to be said, a fantastic save from Leclerc, because that could have been an almighty crash there, high-speed crash into the wall. He managed to keep it going, does lose P2, but realistically, it was inevitable at that point. But also, at this point, he has a 30-second gap to Russell, who is in P4. And I'm just screaming at the TV that he should pit immediately, use that gap, get those fresh tyres on, maybe get the fastest lap. But also, if there is a safety car or something, when that pack gets bunched up again, he'll be on the fresher tyres as long as Lando doesn't pit or whatever it might be. They didn't do it immediately, but they would do it in the end. But on lap 66... finally, Lewis Hamilton passes George Russell for P4. 16 laps worth of attempts of overtakes from Lewis Hamilton to George Russell finally pay off. He gets past. My goodness, that was painful to watch at times, but he got it done. Well done. Meanwhile, further down the grid, our two favourite rookies, Liam Lawson and Franco Colapinto, have a bit of an incident here. Colapinto coming alongside and smashing into Lawson's front wing. Now, I don't know if Colapinto got a penalty for this. He might have done. There was rumours that he might get a penalty, so we'll wait and see, but there you go. Lawson has to pit from here, of course, to fix the front wing. He does get fastest lap briefly, but then the fastest lap battle begins. Lando Norris had fastest lap and was consistently getting fastest lap. Tremendous pace at the end of this race. Lawson took it after pitting for the new front wing. Then, on lap 69, Charles Leclerc pits for fastest lap. On lap 70, Sergio Perez pits for fastest lap, which is the most optimistic thing I've ever seen. Now, of course, we are getting rid of the fastest lap point, and I said at the time, that's a stupid idea, and I'll say it right now again. Getting rid of fastest lap is a stupid idea. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction because some people were like, oh, it wasn't very nice that Daniel Ricciardo got the fastest lap and took the point away from Lando. So F1 have just gone, oh no, we'll get rid of the entire thing. No, you bloody idiots. It's the only thing that makes fastest lap actually interesting and gave us a bit of drama towards the end of this race. Could Leclerc get fastest lap and get an extra point for Ferrari? Could Perez get fastest lap and, despite being out of the race entirely, save Red Bull from losing another point in the Constructors' Championship? This stuff is interesting. And next year, it won't be there because some people on Twitter got upset that Lando Norris didn't have the fastest lap in Singapore. Are you happy, F1? Because I'm not. There you go. Anyway, as we cross the line, Carlos Sainz wins. He was chased down by Lando Norris towards the end, but there was not enough laps left for Lando to get within DRS. Sainz wins. Norris in P2. Again, I feel the reason Norris did not win this race is because of what Max Verstappen did at the start. He took those 20 seconds worth of penalties, but also meant that Lando Norris didn't win the race. So, who's the real winner in the end? Carlos Sainz. That's who. Anyway, Leclerc in P3, and he does get the fastest lap on the final lap, so an extra bonus point for him there. Hamilton 4th, Russell in 5th. A good result for Mercedes. Max Verstappen finishes in 6th. An okay recovery for him, considering the 20 seconds worth of penalties, but it did just seem like Red Bull, once again, were not on the pace here. Without those penalties, I think he probably would have finished 4th. Maybe he would have been involved in that Mercedes battle towards the end. But again, the Red Bull just seemed to cook their tyres entirely. Not a great look for them at the end. But a good look for Haas. Magnussen in P7. Great points for him. Hulkenberg was 9th. So another double points finish for Haas, who are having a fantastic, fantastic year. Oscar Piastri is in 8th. Not great for him. Not a good qualifying yesterday out in Q1, and then was not able to make the recovery I expected him to make. Only 8th place in the McLaren, which was you could argue the first or second fastest car on the grid. To only come back to 8th, I think is a bit underwhelming from Oscar Piastri there. Not a great race for him. Pierre Gasly was 10th, the last of the points finishes, another good point for the Alpine team. Lance Stroll in 11th, just missing out. Colapinto crossed the line in 12th, but might be getting a penalty for the Liam Lawson thing. Ocon 13th, Valtteri Bottas a solid 14th place. Zhou Guanyu just behind him in 15th. Liam Lawson's race came crashing down thanks to that crash with Colapinto. He finished up in 16th place. And then a true disaster for Sergio Perez, 17th place, the last of the cars that were actually running in the race. My goodness, I don't think it could have gone any worse. And if the final nail is not already in the Sergio Perez Red Bull coffin, let's just add another nail to this coffin, because there is no way he can be in the Red Bull next year after that. Dreadful. We had 3 DNFs. Alonso on his 400th race did not finish. Albon and Yuki Tsunoda also had that incident on lap 1. They didn't finish the race either. In terms of the championship, Lando Norris cuts into Max Verstappen's lead. Is it now about 40-something points, I think? Let me double check. Is it even updated on here? I don't know. 47 points is Max Verstappen's lead with 4 race weekends to go. But the more interesting thing is the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari have jumped Red Bull. Ferrari now up to P2 and just 29 points off the back of McLaren. So Ferrari very much in the driver's seat in terms of the Constructors' Championship this weekend. So that is a very interesting one to sit back and watch as we go into the closing stages of this season. If I was to make a prediction right now, I'd say Max Verstappen, Drivers' Championship, Ferrari, Constructors' Championship. Let's see how that one goes from here. Because if you look at the last 2 race weekends for the Constructors, in the US, Ferrari scored 55 points, McLaren 28. In Mexico, they scored 41 points, McLaren 22. So they're making these big, over 20-point gaps the last 2 races, and they still haven't brought their final upgrade package. They were supposed to bring it last weekend, but it got delayed. So there's still upgrades to come for Ferrari. I think these last 4 races here, they can really boss it, and I think they will, in the end, I wouldn't be surprised if we look back and see Ferrari quite comfortably won the Constructors' Championship. But as for the drivers, I just don't see Lando Norris doing it. I've been saying this for weeks now, but even more at this point when Ferrari look to be on it, where maybe Lando isn't the fastest car right now, and Max is going to do whatever the hell he can, whatever dark arts he can to win this title. He is making sure he will become a 4-time world champion at the end of this year, and I think he'll do it. There you go. That's all we've got for this weekend. Back tomorrow for the drivers' ratings. Then next week, we're back again. It is a sprint race weekend in Brazil, which means the preview will be on Thursday. We'll have sprint qualifying reaction on the Friday, sprint race and normal qualifying reaction on the Saturday, and then your race as usual on the Sunday, driver ratings on the Monday. So still so much to go in this season, so much to come from this channel. I will see you all then. Until next time, have a good one. Goodbye.